Orbits are weird. Remember your orbiting baseball? What if you wanted to make its orbit higher? Well, it's a baseball, so grab your bat and try to hit the ball to a higher orbit. Your first thought might be to try to deflect the ball upwards. Unfortunately, hitting the ball upward bends its orbit so that it hits the ground before it can return to you. What you need to do is hit the ball in the direction it's already moving, adding to its already high velocity. Now that you've sped the ball up, why isn't it flying any higher? It just keeps whizzing by at the same height it always did. After all, I said that making it go faster would make it go higher. What gives? The ball is actually going higher, but it's going higher on the opposite side of the planet from where you're standing. You've raised its orbit, and you've learned the first lesson of orbital maneuvering. Your actions affect the opposite side of your orbit. Weird, huh? So your ball is moving faster, but it's still passing you at the same height. How do you get its orbit higher on this side of the planet? Now that you know how changes in velocity affect the other side of your orbit, you've got all you need. By adding velocity to the ball at the highest point in its orbit, you raise the lowest point in its orbit and make it circular again. An equatorial orbit is good, but if you want to travel beyond Kerbin, you will need to manipulate your orbit. Let's start with something simple, expanding an orbit. We do that by increasing the value of our Apoapsis. Let's get a good view. Remember how you circularized your orbit by increasing your forward velocity? To raise your orbit, you'll just do more of the same. It's time to burn prograde. Now that we're pointed the right way, we can increase the throttle and watch our orbit expand. Ooh, cut the throttle. If you overdo it, you'll leave Kerbin's orbit entirely. Nice! That maneuver raised our orbit on the other side of Kerbin, so we will enter high orbit there. Waiting to reach a specific point can be as eventful as watching the neon stripes on your rover dry. The paint job will be worth it, but isn't it better to rush to the end? Skip ahead to the good stuff using a time warp. Like I said earlier, the highest point of our orbit is called the Apoapsis. The lowest point of our orbit is known as the Periapsis. By default, your camera is focused on your vessel, so if you can't see either of these points, adjust your camera. Scroll the middle mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Double-click an object to center your camera on it. Click the middle mouse button to enter FreeCam. Press Home to reset the camera to your active vessel. Excellent! You can time warp to any position on your trajectory by selecting a point on your vehicle's current path, and then selecting Time Warp to Point. Now you're way up in the sky, so high that if you circularize your orbit now, you'll be in high orbit. Wow, Kerbal Space Center looks so small from here. From command pods to space probe cores, a lot of critical rocket parts use electric charge. You'll want to design your rocket so it can generate and store EC. Most rocket engines generate electric charge while active, but we'll still need a way to keep our batteries full while coasting between maneuvers. Solar panels convert Kerbal's light into EC for our rockets. Small solar panels can just be placed, but large solar panels are delicate and must only be deployed once we're out of the atmosphere. I've equipped this rocket with 2 deployable solar panels. Here's a hand crank. Get to work. Just kidding. There's a handy button that opens all of them with a single click. Give it a try. Great! The solar panels are now extended. Light-tracking solar panels only rotate on one axis, so we may need to reorient our ship to point them fully at the sun. Let's make sure the panels are getting direct sunlight by rolling our ship a little bit. Excellent. The solar panels are soaking up all of those sweet photons and giving our rocket some much-needed EC. You can see the status of any solar panel within the Part Manager in the Electrical Parts menu. You can either access the app directly by clicking the App button, or you can right-click a part to directly access it in the Part Manager. Getting EC is one thing, and storing it is another. Most command pods have a small battery, but many missions will call for additional EC storage. When we're traveling far from the sun or going to the dark side of a planet, more batteries means more peace of mind. Have you seen our R&D building? Our brilliant scientists are constantly developing new technologies. New technology means new parts to play with. Exciting, right? There is one teeny catch. Our scientists don't get out much. Outside of the launch pad, the majority of the KSC's explosions happen at R&D. After the great bathroom break incident, the team has decided to stay put. Seriously, they've installed bunk beds in the break room. That's where we come in. While our scientists are hard at work, it's up to us to give them all the data they crave. Who do you think pilots our probes? We earn science by completing missions and performing experiments. Feel free to visit Mission Control for the rundown on missions. I'm here to guide you through performing experiments. Experiments are performed at research locations, a combination of place and situation. For example, low orbit and high orbit around Kerbin are two of those locations. Other situations include being landed in a certain geographic region, swimming in the water, or flying in the atmosphere over Kerbin's majestic mountains. Experiments are performed by special experiment parts. Each experiment will detail what research locations they work in, so read your part details in the VAB. Kerbals on extravehicular activity, EVA, are also able to perform experiments, but make sure they don't lock the door behind them so they can re-enter the vehicle. But Paige, you say, that's a lot to keep in mind. Is there an easy way to tell when I should perform an experiment? I've got your back. Every experiment on your vessel is tied to the Perform Experiments button. It's lit right now, so when you use it, it will activate our General Science Collection module and let us know how the mystery goo is doing. It's as easy as that. By the way, if you ever want to perform a specific experiment, or you want to see the status of an experiment, you can use the Part Action Manager. All of our experiments have been performed, and the research reports are available for us to read. Let's see what we've got. The research inventory shows all research reports that are on our vessel. You can see what we've learned, how much it's worth, and even transmit certain reports back to KSC. There are two types of research reports. Data and sample data reports can be transmitted back to KSC. Sample reports will need to be returned by recovering your vehicle on Kerbin. Fortunately, we just got a data report, so let's transmit it. Transmitting requires both electric charge, EC, and an antenna to communicate back to KSC. If you're ever planning a one-way mission for science, make sure you have both. At some point, the crew will run out of snacks. Did you know a Kerbal is 99.9% more likely to crash when hungry? That's when it's time to head back down to Kerbin, a planet known for its plentiful snack options. First, let's get a better view for this operation. Remember how we burned prograde to raise our orbit? To lower our orbit, we burn in the opposite direction, retrograde. SAS can really help us out here, so let's turn that on. Now flip retrograde, the opposite direction to our rocket's movement. When we get into position to fire our engine backwards, we'll slow down. All right, the rocket is aligned to retrograde. Increase the throttle and burn until our trajectory is just past the atmosphere. As we decelerate, watch what's happening to our periapsis. Once it enters the atmosphere, this rocket is on a path back to the ground. Don't ease off the throttle yet, though. That's it. Let's stop our burn. Now that we're on a collision course with Kerbin, we need to turn that collision into something more survivable. This process of crashing without dying is called landing. Our upcoming stage will activate a decoupler, dropping the engine and exposing a very important heat shield. Why don't you do that now? Great! We're on our way down and our heat shield is exposed. Have you ever wondered what a marshmallow feels like when it catches on fire? You're about to find out. Okay, we're about to descend very quickly. Our friend, the atmosphere, doesn't like speeding, and it'll do everything in its power to slow us down. This tendency gets downright violent at re-entry speeds. Traveling rapidly through the atmosphere compresses the air in front of the vessel, slowing us down but generating heat. Re-entry is all about slowing down and diverting heat away from the sensitive parts of our vehicle. As our capsule descends, friction with the air generates heat. The only thing keeping us from becoming a shooting star is the disc-shaped heat shield beneath our capsule. Lucky for us, this capsule is equipped with one. Let's start by selecting retrograde. Right now, SAS is keeping the ship pointed retrograde, meaning the heat shield is facing forward. It's the only thing standing between our flammable crew and the white-hot blast furnace outside. Heat shields can take a beating, but they don't last forever. As it's cooked by the heat of re-entry, it sheds expendable layers of material called ablator. Once the ablator's all gone, your heat shield is as durable as a sheet of paper. Good thing you checked the durability before we took off, right? Let's watch the show. Whew, that was intense. I'd sweat if I had any pores. Now our velocity is low enough to safely deploy the parachute. Go ahead. Let's savor this moment and make sure that our parachute fully deploys. If you want, you can use time warp to savor it quickly. Thanks to the heroic efforts of our heat shield, our parachute has fully deployed and our crew will land in the correct number of pieces. Mission accomplished.